or
Can
whatever.
you imagine having this whole party for your birthday? Damn.
Right?
Talk about
My super sweet 16. Yeah. Hello, everyone, and welcome to A Pot of the Seven Kingdoms, our journey through a close reading of the Dunk and Egg novellas by George R. R. Martin. I'm Phil.
And I'm Caroline, also known as B-Luck on the internet. I don't know, I was just surprised by that. I'm on this podcast every time, and I was just shocked. Like, I had to say my name. And we are reading this section from page 52 to page 60.
Yep.
Just all jousting all the time. Love it.
Yes, it is all the jousting. And yeah, if you're finding us for the first time, you can find the first 5 episodes also here. It's all in a playlist for your ease of listening, so you can get caught up with us. But yeah, we're going section by section, and this section is a lot of introductions and a lot of jousting. So we'll try. I wanted to try to keep this as organized as possible, so people can keep it straight of like who's who and what's happening and all of this stuff, because there's a lot going on. But as it starts out, Dunk wakes up. It's the first day of the tournament, but being a Hedge Knight, there's a bit of a strategy to all of this where you don't enter the jousting until some people have had a chance to be knocked out of the jousting.
Yes. So he wakes up all nervous, and he had bought them all this nice food the day before, but he can't eat any of it for breakfast because his tummy hurts because he's nervous.
Yep.
But he's not even jousting that day.
Yep. So, doesn't I related to Dunk in this moment of he's like nervous about something that's gonna happen, but it's not anything that is happening right now. It's not anything that he's in really any control of. He's just vaguely nervous about the fact that he will have to joust at some point.
Yeah.
And everything is riding on it, essentially. Which he keeps thinking about throughout this whole time. But he also has a little bit of a chat with Egg, because and Dunk realizes that Egg is quite the resource when it comes to knowing all of the knights, because earlier in the book Egg said that he knew all of the good knights in the Seven Kingdoms, and Dunk in this section is like, I guess he did. Like, he wasn't joking when he said he knew all of the good knights. So he's trying to like really glean as much information as possible, because he knows less than Egg in terms of like his competition or potential competition in this joust.
And I think it shows quite a bit about Dunk's character, that like this 8-year-old kid who he's assuming is like from Flea Bottom and King's Landing knows all this stuff, and instead of being like, how dare you think you're smarter than me or whatever like that, Dunk's like, tell me more. What do you know? Like, you have information? I would like your information, please. He's like not too egotistical to take advice from someone who has more knowledge than he does.
Right.
So I do find it interesting, though, that Dunk continues to think this kid has the same background as him, considering how many knights this kid knows.
Yeah.
Dunk's like, because like, Dunk, sweetie, you grew up in the same place.
Yeah.
You don't know all these knights.
Nope.
You didn't know all this when you were 8.
Right. You weren't going to tournaments as frequently as this kid clearly is going.
Right.
Right.
Have you put any thought into this? And the answer is no, he is not.
No. So they go to view the joust, and there's a little bit of like an opening ceremonies where he sees first he elbows his way through the crowd.
He says, I'm giant, let me through.
Yeah. Which again, this is tall privilege, because it reminded me of being at concerts and being like, I was Egg in this situation where I'm like, God damn it, I can't see anything. So Egg gets put on Dunk's shoulders so that he can see what's going on.
That's so cute.
And so they do this little like opening ceremony or whatever, and it specifically mentions that Prince Baelor is standing there with Lord Ashford, like as they get things kicked off, wearing a coronet which I did not know what that meant. But it's just any crown that's worn by not the king.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, it's a coronet, yeah.
So, anyways,
you clearly don't follow the crown girl on TikTok. Come on,
No,
you gotta follow. I forget her name. I think it's Astria or something, but she does all different crowns and she teaches about different kinds of crowns. I think coronets also refer to like a smaller kind of crown than like a big one, but I'm not 100% sure about that.
And so he notices first that he doesn't see Prince Maekar, but he does see Prince Baelor standing there, and then says like he does not look a Targaryen in truth with that dark hair. And then he thinks that, and then Dunk said as much to Egg.
Yeah.
And Egg is like, it's said he favors his mother. He was a Dornish princess. And so we get obviously the Egg hitting, the orphan from Flea Bottom hitting Dunk with the royal family stuff.
Right, yeah. Do you not know the royal family lineage? It's so weird. Let me tell you all about it.
It's said he favors his mother. That's because they're always talking about Baelor's hair in Flea Bottom.
Yeah, so what else do you talk about in Flea Bottom besides the hair color of the crown prince?
I guess. Yeah.
Keeping up with the Targs. Come on, that's everyone's watching that on TV. Yeah.
Keeping tabs on the Targs.
That would be it. Keeping tabs on the Targs.
That's the one. So they start. So basically, we get introduced to the 5 champions. So the way that the joust is set up is that there are 5 people who are quote unquote defending the honor of the daughter of Lord Ashford, whose birthday it is.
Yes.
Name day or whatever.
Can you imagine having this whole party for your birthday? Damn.
Right?
Talk about
My super sweet 16. Yeah.
My super sweet 16 wishes it could be this cool. Come on. I had a joust at my birthday.
Oh my god, that would be such a good skit too. They get her present the champions or whatever, and it's like, I didn't want Prince Valar, like I wanted whatever.
You only got me 5 champions. I wanted 7 champions for the 7.
Yeah, my gross brothers are gonna be my champions. Like, this is the worst. You're ruining my life.
They get her like a really fancy horse as like a gift, and she's like, I wanted a silver filly.
Yeah. So basically the goal of this is that the 5 champions like have to joust, and then everybody who enters the lists challenges a champion and tries to take their place. Like, that's how it goes, essentially.
And they're jousting, so it starts with jousting, but then if you get knocked off your horse, you can do melee battle as well, unless you're like too injured from the joust, in which case you forfeit.
And you can yield as well at any point. So it's like you can, if you get knocked off particularly hard, or a piece of armor gets removed, or your shield completely shatters or something, and you won't be able to like fight effectively, then you can yield as well. So the 5 champions that they start out with are like I mentioned, her 2 gross brothers, which I don't know that they're gross. I'm sure
she thinks they're gross.
She thinks they're gross. So Andrew Ashford and Robert Ashford.
Because George R. Martin said Andrew is too simple, but Andrew, that's a fantasy name. Boom. Andrew.
Exactly. And then immediate kind of big jump up to Leo Tyrell. So the Lord of Highgarden, they're in the Reach. So the Lord, they're like Lord over the Ashfords, is serving as a champion. And the actual, because at first I was kind of thinking like, oh, it'll be minor people from a lot of these families or whatever, but nope, it's the actual like Lord of Highgarden. So
which is so nice. That's like really nice of him to like come and be like, oh, I'll come to your daughter's birthday. I can make balloon animals too. Like, I'll participate. Right. Like, it's great.
And it is I feel like it's refreshing. And George, I talked about this a little bit in the analysis piece, but there is a lot of house stuff that George is playing with here of just messing with the dynamics from the main series of like Leo Tyrell is like an accomplished jouster, right? Where it's like Mace Tyrell in the main series is like wouldn't be caught dead jousting.
Yep.
And doesn't want to fight, like is known for being like sort of staying out of stuff, whatever. So I like when he plays with those sort of family dynamics, because it's like as monolithic as many of these families are, they're not actually monoliths, because there are different people that make up the families and they have their own personalities who, you know, anyways.
Yeah, definitely.
So then we get Humphrey Harding, which Harding, a smaller house from the Vale. People will know this one, like will know the Hardings from Harry the Heir from the main series. Like if you're, so he's Harry Harding. So Humphrey Harding is his, you know, distant ancestor. And then the Prince Valar Targaryen, so Baelor's son, serving as a champion. And we'll talk more about the champions, because there's this wraps up into main series stuff. There's a whole theory around the champions of the tourney at Ashford. But we get into the joust. And I mean, Caroline, as you well know about jousting, that first tilt, when all five tilts go at once, you hope that all 10 lances will break. Because that's a good omen.
It's a good omen. Obviously, were you not aware that it was a good omen? That means that the tourney is going to be so fun, and nothing bad will happen in a few pages from now. It's going to be great.
Exactly. So this is considered a good omen, because this first tilt they charge at each other and all the lances strike, but none of the riders are unseated, and so it just says that like, look at the skill, look at, you know, no one was unseated on the first one, and they all struck their lances.
I do think that like maybe this has some of that professional wrestling thing about it.
Yeah, that
like,
I was thinking the same.
All of the lances broke.
Yeah,
like, you know, certainly you could like weaken a lance beforehand, and like it could be like, maybe it's made of a softer wood or something like that. Like this is the lance of the first one, so it breaks and everyone's like, whoa, awesome, you know. But like I could totally see like the steward in the background like putting this all together. And we have some evidence in the section that some of these things are a little bit rigged too, as we'll get into. So I could totally see that.
No, and that's what, if you know that this is a good omen, right, and that the small folk are going to really love it, like,
or if it's not a good omen and you spread the rumor that it's a good omen,
right?
You know, if you're like in like have people in the crowd being like, man, I wonder if all the lances will break if they all keep their seat and all the lances break. That means this turn is going to be the best.
It's like,
you know, and then it happens. Like, whoa, who could have predicted? You know,
that's exactly. Like, so the small folk are going nuts after this first pass, because all the lances break, and that means it's going to be a great tournament. And then we quickly do have some people getting unseated. Leo Tyrell. We have interestingly enough, Lord Paramount matchup in the first round of we have the Lord of Highgarden ride against the Lord of Casterly Rock. And so, Leo Tyrell defeats Daemon Lannister by knocking his helmet off. And so Daemon, the gray lion, who Arlen unseated in Lannisport all those years ago and was Dunk's ticket in, he's unseated by Leo Tyrell. And then the next is Valar, Prince Valar unseats Abelar Hightower, who had challenged him, which they kind of mentioned, like, he's a little bit, like, maybe a little bit older and like all that sort of stuff. And then Humphrey Harding, who we get a little bit of backstory that, like, this guy is kind of serious in terms of like his martial prowess, where he's apparently been around to a few tournaments and he beat Sir Donal of Duskendale from the Kingsguard in a melee. Like, so he's like pretty serious. He defeats a unfirst named Lord Tully. So they didn't give him a name, so I'm gonna give him a name.
Is this one Cookie Monster Tully?
I was gonna say Gonzo.
Gonzo, there we go. Gonzo Tully. Cannon.
So Humphrey Harding defeats Lord Gonzo Tully. Because
he's
for some reason,
Gonzo Cookie Monster Tully. That's
Gonzo
yeah.
Cookie. That's it. The Cookie Monster.
Yeah.
And then the Ashford kids put on like a show. In terms of neither of them were expected to win because one is facing Tybolt Lannister, who is I think is a sibling of the Lord, like of the Gray Lion Daemon. But it's not actually specified. I don't think it's just he's just
That makes sense.
But probably a sibling or a son, I guess.
Son, yeah.
And then Lionel Baratheon, who has another all-time nickname of the Laughing Storm.
Yes.
The Lord of Storm's End as well. And so the two kids like give a very good account of themselves. And Lionel Baratheon, I think him and the one Ashford sibling, I think it's 10 lances or something like that they break.
It's 9. The younger Ashford lasted even longer, breaking no less than 9 lances against Sir Lionel Baratheon, the Laughing Storm.
Yeah.
Champion and challenger both lost their saddles on the 10th. So
they knock each other off on the 10th, and then they fight on the ground, and it's eventually Lionel wins. But to take it that far, they even mentioned that like Lord Ashford is like over the moon, basically, of like his kids like fought really well against like very seasoned and very accomplished knights
at also their tourney that they're hosting, so it's like important that they don't like totally fuck it up, right? So it was like there's like a lot of pressure for those kids, so good for them.
So for those keeping track, Leo Tyrell
made notes about this because I was very confused.
So for those keeping track, Leo Tyrell keeps his place as champion by virtue of winning his. Valar keeps his place as champion by winning his. Humphrey Harding stays as a champion. The two Ashford kids lose their spots as champions and are replaced by Tybolt Lannister and Lionel Baratheon. So we now have Lionel, Tybolt, Leo Tyrell, Humphrey Harding, Prince Valar. That's the spread. So Dunk, at the same time that the princes are not the princes, that the brothers Ashford are having their like they're getting a lot of like credit for like how well they're jousting. Dunk has this thought that like that wouldn't even be enough for him, of like jousting well won't be enough because it'll still mean I lose and I lose everything. Like I have to win. I can't. It's not enough for me to just like joust well and lose. And so there is definitely another sort of like class aspect here of like these Ashford kids. They're going up against people they're not expected to win, and like they gain a lot by just not losing like in an embarrassing way, right?
And also,
like,
I imagine like in terms of like the ransoming your armor and stuff like that. I mean, like the children of the host. Well, but even so, the children of the host of the party.
Oh yeah,
and
Lionel Baratheon, like
Lionel Baratheon is not gonna. He's not gonna be like, give me some fucking silver for this armor. You know, like he's just gonna be like, thank you for hosting me. I'm not gonna take your ransom. You know, like I'm sure that's very par for the course.
Exactly.
For like how they interact with each other. It's like probably just considered polite to not ransom your host's kid's armor after a joust.
This is there's like some lord somewhere who's like forcing the lords to ransom his kid's armor because he's like, I don't want to teach them that they get a like free pass in life. They need to earn this.
Pull themselves up by their bootstraps. Exactly. Come on.
But yeah, so Dunk has this realization that like even if he becomes like a hero of the of the small folk because he like fights really well or something like that, and they're like, oh, what a good bout, like it won't matter unless he wins. And so with the people being knocked out, we get 3 new challengers, and I don't know that it's particularly significant like who these people are, but we get Lord Pierce Caron, Joseph Mallister, and Gawain Swan. So Gawain Swan is the one that's like more significant because of those three, like they go up and they tap shields, and Karen goes for Leo Tyrell. Mallister.
Karen asked for the manager.
Yeah. Exactly. Mallister goes for Harding, I think, and then Gawain Swan challenges Prince Valar.
Yeah.
And Dunk and Egg have an exchange because Dunk is basically like, okay, of those three, like who's the worst of those three guys that just challenged? And Egg is like, it's definitely Swan. Like Swan is the weakest link.
And Dunk is picking up on the fact that, like, in the previous bout, the weakest one went against Prince Valar. And now in the second bout, the weakest one is going against Prince Valar.
Yep.
Perhaps a pattern?
Perhaps a pattern. So, yeah, basically Dunk clocks it and is like, Valar is my ticket.
Yeah.
Like, because he's like, he's good, but he's not like that good.
Yeah.
And we've seen him remark about other knights, like up to this point, like I think it was 2 sections ago, maybe, where he is before he runs into the Fossaways and has the apple-based conversation. He sees people like practicing jousting and stuff like that, and he remarks on the fact that like that they all have better like form and like better seats than him. And so for him to see Valar, like it is actually notable that he sees Valar as like, oh, I actually think I could beat this guy. And it's the first glimmer of hope he's had.
Yes, there's an interesting little exchange where Egg refers to Prince Valar just as Valar.
Oh yeah.
And Dunk corrects him. That's like, it's Prince Valar. Squire must keep a courteous tongue, boy. It's like,
I had that highlighted. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay. Just nothing for Dunk. Just over the head entirely.
Yep. And so they joust. And it is Gawain and Valar first, basically, or that's the one that they're watching because Dunk is like laser focused on Valar.
Yeah.
And he knocks on the second pass, like he knocks Swan.
Yeah, so he knocks Swan down, and then Valar gets off his horse and draws his sword to like keep doing the melee. And Swan is like, whoa, I yield, your grace. Well fought.
Yeah.
And the crowd is ever like, well fought, whatever. And it goes, it was not either.
Yeah.
and Dunk's like, be quiet. Like, don't say that out loud. It's a prince.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, it wasn't well fought.
Right.
It was definitely
planned
ahead and thrown. Like
the way Gawain's fall is described is very different from the other, like the people getting unseated in these other, it's like extremely violent, right? Like in terms of, it's always like it struck their breastplate and they were thrown. It struck like their it knocked their helmet clean off. There are 2 guys who are like carried from the field completely unconscious. Like
it's dangerous.
It's extremely dangerous. And and this guy, it's like the description is he it struck his shoulder, like it was pointed for his breast. It hits Swan's shoulder. Even so, the blow was enough to make the older knight lose his lance. So he just drops his lance.
Right, exactly. Like he's couching his lance, like you couch your lance with like your arm under it. So your shoulder gets hit. That shouldn't make you drop your lance.
Not necessarily.
It's like, whoa.
And then one arm flailed for balance and Lord Gawain fell. Right. So it's like it happens in stages where these other ones are like it's super violent and they're like thrown to the ground essentially, or a piece of armor is ripped off. This is like it happens like one thing happens and then the next thing happens and then the next thing happens, which is all very like, it feels very much like it's the fall.
Yeah, I just imagined him like with his lance, like riding. He gets hit in the shoulder, and he like drops his lance, and, and his arms like flailing as a
Yeah,
whoa, and just kind of like
eases himself like
slowly
off of the
falls.
horse. Yeah, just trying to like
Yeah,
brace as
like
much as
oh,
possible.
I've been hit by the prince. Oh no.
I I like to picture this one. Are you familiar with the movie, the Guy Ritchie movie Snatch with Brad Pitt?
No,
And
I'm not. I'm
okay,
sorry.
it's a like a heist movie, whatever, little crime movie, but it's all based around initially this bare knuckle boxing, like underground bare knuckle boxing ring that people gamble on in the UK. And the promoter who is in charge of all of it is like rigging all of the fights.
Yeah.
And so I just like to picture this extremely British dude here being like, look, Swan, you're going down in the 4th round. And that's all there is to it. All right.
Make the fall believable.
Yeah, yeah. Second tilt, your man takes the fall. Yeah, Joseph Mallister is defeated to the point of he's carried unconscious from the field.
Yeah.
Oh, and he fought Humphrey Harding. I think I had that mixed up. It was Leo Tyrell fought Pierce Caron. But yeah, so Mallister fights Humphrey Harding, and we see again, like, Humphrey Harding is no joke. He is like, he is giving people a really tough time. And so he's unseated a Lannister and now a Mallister, and it's like he's in pretty good shape. But and then Leo Tyrell defeats Pierce Caron in a little, dismounted melee that they have. Both of them wielding blunted long axes, which I thought was
it was really cool because it was, let's see, so Lord Pierce was going after Lord Leo, like breaking his shield, but then at one point his axe gets stuck in the shield, and then Lord oh gosh, I'm getting them confused. The other one, basically, one axe gets stuck in the shield, and the other one uses their axe to cut the axe of the other one. It's like super cool.
Cuts the handle off of the axe, and
it sounds like something that should totally be in like a visual adaptation of this book. You know,
oh, for sure.
If only there was a visual adaptation of this book, I would love to see that. HBO.
For sure. No, it's a very cool detail. And yeah, so with the Harper Knight, they were calling, because he has a harp sigil, the Karens. He was on one knee singing his surrender, brings us to the end of that section.
Is that a joke? Wait, the Harper Knight, the Karen. His name is Karen.
Yeah.
It's a Harper Knight.
Yeah. Probably.
Like someone always harping on you, like bothering you, and it's a Karen. Is that a joke?
I don't think so. This is written in the 90s, so it does sound.
Maybe he knew, just like the price of eggs.
Right? He saw into the future.
He looked into the flames and said, yes, Karen will be a joke.
Yeah, he was looking into his flames. So obviously, in addition to just there being a long list of names of people involved in this, I do think that there's house stuff going on. Like, I think that George is like using houses partially because, like, there's probably some that he just wanted to be involved, like, in some of the stuff. And I think like utilizing specific houses for specific things has always been a George thing, where he looks for like what's the impact of this house going to be on the story, like from a broader aspect. And so he gets a lot of houses involved here, some that have like obviously a lot of main series connection, others with a little bit less. But I guess the biggest house thing that he does is the genesis of this, the 6 suitors of Sansa Stark, which is a real mouthful to say out loud. but this is a theory that was on Reddit like a long time ago. So this is not, I don't want anyone to think that this is like an original theory or anything like that.
This is our original theory from our podcast. No one has ever thought about this or these books at all before now. What are you talking about?
Exactly. So
I'm vaguely familiar with this one, but why don't you explain it? Because I don't know all the details.
So someone sort of put two and two together that once the Ashfords are removed from the list of the champions at Ashford, they're replaced by a Lannister and a Baratheon. And so going down the list of champions, you have a Targaryen, a Tyrell, a Baratheon, a Lannister, and a Harding. And people are saying that this is the list of like suitors for Sansa Stark, where you have, you know, initially Joffrey, Baratheon, quote unquote, but then marries Tyrion, Lannister. Oh, was potentially going to marry Willis Tyrell. Is now being schemed to marry Harry the Heir, Harry Harding. And some people point to it as basically the next suitor of Sansa will be a Targaryen because of Valar's presence as a champion, because it is checked off down every like.
So what you're telling me is that Sansa will be queen of Westeros when she marries Aegon, the true heir to the Targaryen throne.
So that's
done.
Some people say that. There are some people who use it as a way to say John, which I'm like, please don't.
No, that would not happen.
And then but yeah, I would say Aegon is the one that gets thrown out there of like could.
Maybe she marries Daenerys. Love is love, you know?
That's what, hey,
do whatever you want.
I mean, breaking the wheel.
Exactly.
Yeah. in the most like intense way possible.
Yes.
No, I think I genuinely do think though that there's it's one of those things where it's like it could be a serious theory, right? And it could just as easily be like a wink from George of like, there's nothing actually to see here, but like,
yeah. Gosh, I'm trying to think because the other problem is like, while there are a lot of houses, there are also only so many.
Of course.
And there are only so many big ones that would potentially be potential suitors for someone like Sansa Stark. And a lot of those houses are the same kind that would roll up to the tourney at Ashford. So it's just like it's not like there's a weird house there. There's not like a Greyjoy who like came from nowhere, you know, and like it also is an overlap. It's just like there are certain houses, like it could be coinkydink.
Yeah.
It's certainly an interesting close reading theory.
Yeah.
I don't know what it tells us, I guess.
That's short of the only real thing that it would tell you is that it, you know, if you subscribe to the theory, then it points towards a Targaryen as like the last, you know, suitor or marriage for Sansa. But, and this maybe is veering too much outside of the Dunk and Egg of it all.
Okay, go there. I'm there with you. Go.
But I think Sansa, like the idea of Sansa's story ending, because if you say, oh, it's Aegon and that's the Targaryen or whatever.
He's real, goddammit.
Yeah. and his story is not going to end well. Like, even if he is actually Aegon Targaryen, like, I don't think he's going to have like a happy ending where he's the king, right? Like, so the idea that Sansa is betrothed to or marries like this Aegon, who is also probably doomed, it paints a very bleak picture for Sansa's story.
Yeah.
Where there is much more promise. Like, as fucked up as all of the Littlefinger stuff is, like, don't get me wrong, she has much more promise right now where she is in the story than she would like married to Aegon.
I also just don't think that it thematically makes sense for a book Sansa Stark to really end up married.
Right.
And I think the show may have spoiled the ending of Sansa. The only thing in the ending of the bad show Game of Thrones that actually made any sense was Sansa becoming Warden of the North. Not Wardeness. They don't need a. English is not a gendered language. We don't need unnecessarily gendered nouns. So she would be Warden of the North.
Yeah.
I think that's the ending that does make the most sense to me, at least for Sansa's character and how she sort of has or is in the process of deconstructing the understanding of being a woman in a position of power in the patriarchy in a way that her mom never did. And so she sort of took the lessons Cat Stark had, but is now taking them to the next level.
Right.
And I don't see her like being queen of Westeros as like an ending to that. Like she belongs in the North.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. It is an interesting theory. It's funny that it lines up with the suitors or whatever.
I mean, it could be that she gets betrothed at some point to, maybe she gets betrothed to him and like that, bad things happen or what, what have you. But like, I don't think that that'll be her ultimate ending.
I think it is a little bit flimsy too with the like two of the people, right? Like, particularly Willis, like that was only a thing that was ever really like it was talked about, but it was never like actually happening.
Right, exactly. Well, then maybe that means that the Targaryen thing could be like mentioned offhand one time.
Sure.
And count,
right.
for the list.
Where Littlefinger has it lined up and then, tragically dies.
Tragically.
Yeah. Quote unquote.
Quote unquote tragically.
Yeah. The other thing that stuck out to me about this section was, I mean, we talked a little bit about like, Targaryen blood purity last time out. We get a little bit of like genetics, like this time around, of similar to, Leo Tyrell is this like great jouster, and it doesn't mean that his, great great grandson is not going to be like kind of lame or whatever, Baelor Breakspear's son is jousting in the lists, and Dunk is like, no, I could probably take him.
I'm not impressed.
Yeah.
I could fight the prince.
and it does sort of speak to the, like, I think there's a lot of, and maybe this goes to the themes, but there is a lot of like keeping up appearances, making sure that the prince appears like, I mean, there's a lot of expectation. This is not all just like, oh, Valar's a piece of shit or whatever. It's like Valar has a lot of expectation on him in that he is Baelor Breakspear's son. It is expected of him that he'll be like a great warrior. I'm sure, like that's just like the expectation. And like sometimes you're not as good as your dad. Like that's, you know what I mean? Like, or you're good at other stuff. Like you're not, it's not like, oh, you're exactly the same person and you're just like, you just have to like follow in his footsteps. I mean, you see it from athletes often because it's like, there's this expectation. The one that's coming to mind right now is just LeBron James and his son, like basically like being brought along like by his dad, like versus it being, like his, like fully on his own merits and all that sort of stuff. So Valar, similarly, like there's this expectation on him, and they're reinforcing that expectation by like feeding these opponents to him who he can either easily beat or are actively taking a fall in fighting him, so that they can keep up this the appearance that like, one, this family is basically untouchable and they're a bunch of like, demigods, and that Baelor Breakspear's son is as good as his dad at this stuff.
I would be really interested to know, and I mean, maybe we get more information on this later. I don't recall Baelor's opinion on Valar being like average about it, you know, because we had there's a previous dynamic that was potentially somewhat like this with Jaehaerys the old king, the good, the conciliator, quote unquote,
Yep.
and his son Vagon. So
Mhm.
Jaehaerys and Alicent had like a shit ton of kids.
Yeah.
And the first few boys were like really cool. They were like martial and dragons and the whole nine, whatever.
Yep.
And then they had this like gaggle of kids towards the end that were kind of born one right after the other that like were not satisfactory. They were like the unsatisfying children.
Right.
And one was Vagon,
Right.
who was this like bookish nerd, basically.
Mhm.
And there's things like in Fire and Blood where like Jaehaerys like tried to get him like into girls by like giving him basically like medieval pornography. And like, cause like he was like, well, he's into books, so he'll read this.
Yep.
And he like gave him like a porn picture book, more or less. And eventually Vagon goes and becomes a maester. Like he goes to the Citadel. Because he's just like, I'm not into this, Dad. Like, please let me go. And Jaehaerys could, because it wasn't like he didn't need him. He had other sons.
Mhm.
And he had like his firstborn like sons were fine.
Yep.
Quote unquote fine in his point of view. So I wonder for Baelor if he cares.
Right.
You know? Because like we haven't seen very much of him yet in this text, but like he's like so nice to Dunk and like so chill. Yep. Is he like even the one like he has to like in the previous section when Dunk walks in on their conversation, is it Valar that they're talking about joining the lists?
Yeah, Arion too. They talk about
because they don't say by name.
They wanted. I think Daron is the one that is supposed to join, but isn't there. And because Maekar is essentially yelling about the fact that like Daron,
they're
Daron is like he'll change. Like he's 18, he'll change. Like, and
they're
I'll
talking
make
about
him
Arion.
change.
Yeah, they're talking about Arion.
Yeah,
I think so. They're not talking about Valar. So we don't right now. We don't have any information on what Baelor thinks of Valar being like perfectly fine at this. Like he's not great, but he's not awful. He's just like, you know, he can ride the horsey, he can do the lance thing, he can swing a sword. That's it. That's all you need. So it's definitely interesting to see that dynamic and the fact that Dunk can piece it together with a little bit of help from Egg.
Yes.
Does make me wonder how much of the crowd notices.
Right. Which, I mean, there has to be a certain amount.
Yeah.
And it's obvious, too, that there are knights. I mean, Gawain Swan being at least one of them. And then his first challenger, Abelard Hightower. It's probably both of them are in on it, right? Like,
oh yeah.
So they know too.
Yeah.
And I wonder how many people are in on it, like to facilitate this for the prince. Like, how many people have to know?
And how do you keep them quiet? Like, I wonder if are they doing it just because they're Targaryen loyalists? Are they being paid off?
Well, the Hightowers, it's like Hightowers in the Reach. The Tyrells are there or whatever. It's like maybe that one's easier.
Mm-hmm.
They're also a little bit removed from their. They're a little bit removed from their rebellious phase, like the Hightowers went through there. You know,
they did that. They're good.
Yeah, they got it out of their system. So,
yeah.
In terms of themes in this one, I definitely like the omens. Like, I think this is something that we've had like Dunk's shooting star. We've had the now these 10 breaking lances all at once or whatever. And whenever omens or prophecies or anything are mentioned in a George work, it's just a reminder that like you should feel uneasy.
Yeah.
Like,
you should think about this.
Yeah.
I'm saying, and I think that's actually a really good comparison, the shooting star versus the breaking lances, because the shooting star was a natural phenomenon, right? It just so happened that Dunk was awake and looking at the sky and saw a shooting star.
Yep.
And now it wasn't like the red comet from the second book that is like there for the entirety of the second book, and everyone talks about it, and it's huge and giant. He saw like a shooting star.
Right. It was in that specific moment.
Right. Like it's not too uncommon to see, but it's like, interesting. As opposed to the lances, which was like, I don't know. The longer we talked about them, the more I'm like, that was staged. That was just like, that was a created omen. Which I mean, like then is like such a wonderful, like so wonderfully thematic of like creating your own destiny.
Yep.
Right. Creating your own fate, and like the fact that like Dunk takes the shooting star, which is just a natural phenomenon, as an omen.
Right.
And thinks that it's lucky for himself.
Yeah.
That is in the same way as rigging all the lances to break.
Right.
It is creating your own omen. It's just in a different way.
Right. There's also an aspect of this. We talked about like how dangerous jousting is, right? And so there is a certain amount of like, I think what we would today call sportsmanship, but like there is like a, back then, chivalry, valor, honor, like whatever. I was like, is there a joke being made with like, is George winking at us by naming the prince Valar?
The prince that's cheating, naming him Valar. Yeah,
right.
I think so. Yeah,
like the prince that has people throwing matches against him or whatever. Is essentially named Valor. And so, but there are like a lot of these sort of, I don't want to say unwritten rules, because I doubt there were any written rules about jousting necessarily. Like they didn't have like a rules scroll or something like that. But but there are a lot of things that are considered like basically being a good sport or being like honorable. And I think what's interesting about these like opening jousts is that compared to like other jousts we've seen in like the main series or whatever, everybody plays by the rules. First, like in these first like rounds, everybody is striking shield, striking armor, striking, there's no like horses getting like tripped or whatever, or targeted. Like, the mountains, like the mountains joust is like obviously one of the most famous ones of like, he kills his opponent, like because he is aiming to try to kill him, or whatever. And so there's a lot of just like a level of sportsmanship going on in these, to where, yes, there are a couple of people knocked unconscious still, because it is still very dangerous. And there's no sort of unsporting moments of like of people trying to gain some kind of like advantage or whatever. It's all in the interest of, sort of a display of knightly, competition or whatever. And it's all like, up to this point, it's just all very above board. It's all very clean, like relatively speaking. And
that's because all the lances broke.
Right.
And that's a good omen. Come on.
That's why it's happening. The correlation and causation of it all.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure that in the next section, it'll continue to be lovely and fine, and nothing bad will happen.
Yeah.
Nothing bad will happen in this story, right?
Nothing bad at all. No, it is true. It's just whimsy. That's what you heard is true. It's just whimsy all the way down.
No, every now and then, Dunk does stumble into the main plot of the main series.
Right.
He's like, whoa,
I'm in the wrong show.
He looked at the camera. Am I in the right place?
I was gonna say that's actually Damon in his Weirwood vision in the season finale of House of the Dragon season 2 of like, wait, I'm in the wrong show.
He's like, wait, no, this is the bad show. Don't remind us. We already have the stupid dagger. Don't make us.
Was there anything else in terms of like things you notice in this section, or things that you needed to mention? I mean, I think like there's a lot of introducing that we were doing so that we can successfully set up the rest of the jousting.
Yeah, no, I think you did a really good job describing the jousting, because I actually read the jousting section twice to try to follow the different characters, because it's just like a lot of people. Every now and then, like a fantasy or a science fiction story just says, like, looks the reader directly in the eye and says, fuck you, and just introduces like a ton of new stuff. Like, you ever read Dune or any of the Dune books?
Oh yeah.
Okay, Dune is like that. Dune opens, it's like, he walked into the room, the Kwisatz Haderach put his hand in the box, and
The Bene Gesserit,
Bene
like,
Gesserit said, "Don't move because the Kiba is going to poke you." And I'm just like, I'm going to keep reading it, but what?
yeah, like,
So this was a point where George was like, "Let me tell you about these jousts. It's going to be awesome." And I'm like,
yeah,
"Horsey's fight, Horsey's fight." That's what I got.
Horsey's fight. Yeah. No, he was definitely excited to pull out like a lot of the heraldry and stuff too, where he liked being able to describe like because the horses are all dressed in the colors like and sigils and stuff of their knights as well. So everybody's just like, it's just like colorful, and like there's silks and streamers and pavilions and all this stuff, and it's just very it's all very, again, the whimsy is still the predominant feeling.
And I think you and I had the same desire for the TV show.
Yeah,
we want this joust.
Yes,
I want this joust exactly as it happens on page on my screen.
Yep. It needs to feel it needs to feel like intense, but I think like the vibe of the crowd is going to be really important, where it's like you need I think number one, I want some of these shots. I don't want it to be necessarily like I somehow have a cable subscription that gets me the jousting channel or whatever.
You don't want to let the slow-mo replay after.
Exactly. Right. Like, I kind of want the crowd and Dunk's like point of view. Like that's what I'd like to see. And, by extension, Egg, because he's whatever on Dunk's shoulders. Yeah. But like I want to see some of the jousting, at least like from the perspective of the crowd, because Dunk is trying to make like decisions about his tournament strategy on like sort of, he doesn't have like a bird's eye view, and he doesn't have anybody like, well, I guess Egg is, but like he doesn't have necessarily anybody updating him like, oh, and by the way, like down at the other end, this is what happened, right? Like, like where you couldn't really see or whatever. So I think there should be some like chaos about it. I think the jousting should feel really intense.
It could be really funny if there's like a scene of them at breakfast and Dunk's like, I'm gonna go watch today. I'm gonna figure out who the weak link is, and I'm gonna learn my strategy. And then like cuts to the joust, and it's just chaos. And he's just there with Egg on his shoulders, and he's like trying to follow.
Do you see anything? that actually would be pretty funny. Like, no, it's simple.
I would kind of love to see though them try the practical effect of having 10 lances break all at once.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they could do that.
And the crowd all cheer, and Lord Ashford commenting to like Baylor break spear off to the side, like, did you see? Like,
oh, that's something great too we could get in the show that we can't get in the books, which is like stuff that Baylor is doing and the lords and things are doing that like Dunk doesn't see. I'm curious too how, I mean, they could keep it very close to Dunk. They could. Yeah. I wouldn't be mad about that.
I feel like for certain things they might be able to do like a little bit more characterization outside of his POV, but they can't really do plot stuff outside of his POV, because the whole point of like, the way the plot is structured is like all of the good reveals are because Dunk doesn't know what the fuck is going on.
Yeah, exactly. Though you could have a very funny scene like when he meets Baylor, if the audience gets a short scene showing who Baylor is before Dunk enters.
Sure.
And then Dunk enters, and it's like, haha, he like doesn't know who this person is. Yeah.
The dramatic irony of we know who this person is, but Dunk does not.
Yeah, and if Baylor's face is kind of like.
We could also have little shots of at these like opening ceremonies as Dunk like elbows his way into place, and Egg gets up on his shoulders. Baylor like looking in the crowd and seeing a bald kid and being like, "The kid looks familiar."
That's a good point, because we don't know if he's wearing his skin or not.
I'm sure it's nothing.
Yeah, that could be really funny actually. If you could be like, wait a second.
Yeah. But yeah, I think the jousting needs to feel good. I think the jousting needs to be they need to get some of those good shots of just showing how one, like how intense it is, how dangerous it is, but also showing sort of the skill of it and the I think the fact that those first tilts all do happen at the same time is like will be that shot like does need to happen.
I agree.
Of like the simultaneous 5 jousts, like
I
all
will, however, say, knowing my good friends at HBO, what they're gonna do with this joust is that people are gonna die in this joust.
Yeah, see, that's
they
what
can't help themselves. They do it they did it in House of the Dragon.
Yeah.
They do it every time. They always have somebody gets like run through their face or something, and it's like,
yeah. It's funny because I would love for I guess I would love for in this like initial round of jousts them to like leave it and
yeah. Perhaps we can revisit
because
this idea.
the vibe needs to be good for like so it can get worse.
Right. But that's the thing is it's like when they did the jousting in the episode 1 of House of the Dragon,
yeah,
they had people dying. Like we saw people like bloodied and like bloodied enough to be dead.
And they were making comments about like, oh, we haven't been to war, so like these guys just like want blood or whatever. And I was like, that's pretty bleak. Like,
I'm like, that's the menace running Condor.
Like, give them blunted weapons. Like, don't let Daemon use Dark Sister in a tournament. Like, that's insane.
This is why Daemon's lawyer would be the most stressed out lawyer in all of Westeros.
Exactly.
You're being charged with wielding a real sword, Daemon.
You wielded Valyrian steel at a tournament.
Daemon, you wielded Valyrian steel at a tournament. I know it's your sword, Daemon. Daemon, you're supposed to... It's a tournament. You're not supposed to wield it. You don't have a permit to carry in the tournament.
You don't bring... Yeah. Outside weapons are not permitted at the tournament. There is... But yeah, so we get the... I guess we ran down like the initial jousting, and next time we are going to be reading about some more jousting as it continues to get more and more intense. And so we're going to read from page 61. And this, I know like folks are going to say like this is a little bit of a shorter section, and it is, but I promise it's on purpose.
Yes.
Because the next section is going to be like a bigger one.
Yeah.
But you kind of have to that one has to be all one. Like you can't.
Yeah, we don't want.
We'd
rather have different size sections, but have them make sense than like cut them arbitrarily in the middle. Because like then we can't do analysis if it's cut arbitrarily somewhere. Also, don't worry, it'll be a short section, but the podcast will still be an hour long, so it's fine. we have a lot of thoughts and feelings apparently.
Of course, and this one will go to 67.
The page break on 67, yeah.
Yeah, where it says the jousting is done for the day, I think. And yeah, well, if you've enjoyed the episode, please leave likes and subscribe and comment and all of those things. And I guess Caroline, last time I neglected to ask where else people can find you.
I forgot.
Yeah.
People can find me here on YouTube at Barely Functional B. I am making concerted efforts to have a regular release schedule. We are trying over here. Me and my writing team that consists of no one but me, trying really hard. So Barely Functional B here on YouTube. I usually comment in our videos, so if you guys want to find me easily that way, you can. I'm also on TikTok as Block, and I'm on Blue Sky as Block as well. If you guys are interested in more A Song of Ice and Fire content, I do have an active podcast with my friend Gretchen. It's called House of Fire and Blood. If you follow me on Blue Sky, I usually post links there to the podcast, but it's available on any podcast app you have. That is a very close reading, similar to this, a very close reading of the book Fire and Blood. Phil was actually on 2 of our episodes, which was great.
It is a very good show, and I really enjoyed being on it.
Yeah, it was super fun. Those episodes are like 2 to 3 hours each, and we read like 5 to 10 pages per. So it's a really close reading.
Yeah.
So if you're into that kind of thing, we're up to and in the Dance of the Dragons right now in terms of where we are in the book. So yeah. Phil,
Awesome.
besides this, where else can people gonna find you?
Yep, you can find me at Damon Bachfire over on TikTok and Blue Sky. And I am tinkering with the idea of a Twitch as well, and combining some of
Ooh.
my TikTok and YouTube and like live stream stuff into one sort of cohesive thing. So I haven't really thought about how to pull that off yet, but yeah, I'm toying with the idea. So
And you could stream games. Are there any games you'd want to stream?
I play a lot of different things. Once upon a time during the pandemic, I tried to I was like convinced I would stream video games and varying degrees of success.
Yeah.
Everybody was playing video games during the pandemic, obviously, or
Yeah.
during quarantine. So a bit of a saturated market, maybe we'll say. But I've really enjoyed doing like lives on TikTok, and I know we are planning on doing a live at some point
Yes.
in the near future
If
together.
anyone has ideas for a topic,
Yeah.
the idea I submit is that we give our top 3 most unhinged Song of Ice and Fire theories. I already have mine, so I know what I would do.
I'm very excited for that. But yeah, I've enjoyed the live stuff, and it seems like people have been enjoying that as well. So I may lean into that a bit, especially as a way to get more stuff on the YouTube in addition to the show. So yeah.
Twitch is good. I've streamed on Twitch before. I usually would stream on TikTok, but I haven't streamed in a while. Video games.
Yeah.
But in a few months, The Last of Us will be back as a TV show, and I have to go and open the box of all my rage about that, and then I have to go back on the internet and complain. So it's what I do.
Yeah. And as far as games, I am looking forward to Avowed, which comes out tomorrow. So that's Obsidian's RPG that takes place in the same like universe as the games Pillars of Eternity. I don't know if you've heard of these games, but they're like isometric RPG, like so Baldur's Gate, but like before Baldur's Gate 3 existed. Pillars of Eternity and Pillars of Eternity 2 are two of like they're very good games. And this is like a first person game that takes place in that same world. So I'm looking forward to that. But it comes out tomorrow. I am gonna wait until the review,
Yeah,
I don't want to deal with like day one patches and stuff like that. I've learned my lesson.
That's fair. Oh, we've all been there.
Yeah.
We've all been there. Why won't the game load? It needs another patch. Oh boy.
Exactly. Well, thank you all for joining, and until next time, I hope everyone stays well, and we'll see you then.
Yeah, see you guys next time. Bye.